Hello and welcome to Audio Johnapedia number 41. This is John. I think most of you probably have gotten that at some point, unless this is your first time listening, in which case thank you for listening. This is actually something of a sequel episode we're doing here. In mid-March, I actually had a Major League Baseball preview show with friend of mine, Gabe, who helped me run down the divisions. We made picks for who would finish where, who would win the World Series, who would win the major awards. And looking back on some of the picks have gone pretty well, and others have not. We're going to just sort of go over what we've discussed and hopefully do better the second time around. So Gabe is here. He was lucky to have him back on pretty short notice. How you doing, Gabe?
Good. I just want to preemptively say that this baseball season is weird, so I'm going to defend whatever pick I made because baseball is weird.
Yeah, the thing is, like, looking at it, there's certain, like, a lot of it hasn't gone that crazily compared to some other seasons. Like, there aren't really that many teams that are totally out of nowhere, but there's a couple of them that either totally fell apart or were not expected, and generally speaking, we were not on top of it, so that can be our excuse. We can throw whatever excuses we want out there, but
And we're probably still better than the quote-unquote experts on various sites,
yeah.
like John Heyman.
I mean, we went sort of chalk on a lot of these, so it's not like this is going to be like Steve Berthume in 2011 whenever he picked the Houston Astros to win the NL Central, where it's sort of an indefensible pick from the beginning, and as much as you try to defend it by saying, at least you went out on a limb, you were still outrageously wrong. We're outrageously wrong on a couple of things, but so are a lot of people, so we can at least just point fingers at them and skirt all blame.
Yep.
At least I'm interested in doing that. All right, so the way we did the original show was that we ran through the divisions and decided on our rankings of them. And I have the what we picked for the divisions in front of me. Actually, the original notes that I took for it. I'll start with the first division we did that time, which was the AL East. The two of us both picked the Boston Red Sox to win the division. The Boston Red Sox are currently in last place in the AL East by percentage points. And the Tampa Bay Rays are percentage points ahead of Boston. They're currently in fourth place. I picked the Rays to finish in third. You picked them to finish in second. So we're already off to a terrific start, I must say.
Well, we already kind of knew that the AL East would be really weird because we thought the differences between the 1 and 5 teams were like pretty small relative to every other division, I think.
Even so, it's not a great look for us. Number two the team that I picked for number two, whereas you picked the Rays, who are in fourth, are the Yankees, who are currently in third. And then the teams that I picked to finish in the bottom two spots were Baltimore and Toronto, and they're currently in first and second place. You had the Orioles finishing in fourth and the Blue Jays finishing in third, and then the Yankees finishing in last. So it's hard to judge who did worse, but
it's pretty bad.
We did poorly. We did poorly. There's really no reason for us to try to deny it or pretend otherwise. This was not our best showing. So why don't you defend yourself?
Okay. You said I have the Yankees fourth?
You had the Yankees fifth.
Fifth. Okay, I'm going to defend that by saying they have the second worst run differential, negative 37 runs, right in front of Boston with negative 38. So there's still time for them to fall apart. Negative 37 with a 500 record. I mean, they're like the Pirates a couple years ago.
That's kind of like the Yankees last year too, because the Yankees last year I think were around even on the run differential, and they finished about 10 games over 500. So
that's not a talent.
With as far as but the team that they're ahead of in run differential is Boston, who we both picked in first, which is I think probably a safe pick. It seemed like on our part, you picked the defending World Series champions, defending best record in baseball to win their division,
with a current playoff odd percentage of 2.4%.
Which seems low to me. 'Cause, I mean, they're 9.5 back, which is not a good amount to be back, but there's other teams that are in far worse shape than they are.
And yeah.
Baltimore's not exactly running away with it either.
Nope. Although they're doing a lot better than I thought.
Yeah, I'm interested in the fact that Baltimore is in first place because I think about the individual players they have, and it's a lot of disappointing seasons. Chris Davis has not been nearly what he was last year. I mean, I think we figured that he wasn't going to be as good as he was last year, but he hasn't even been close to it. Machado's had his run-ins. J.J. Hardy hasn't been as good. Nelson Cruz and Adam Jones have really carried them a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess you figure the two of them, especially Cruz, aren't gonna probably do what they did in the first half and the second half, but you got to figure the infield's gonna do better, and who knows, maybe they'll get a good starter, which they don't really have, even though they're in first place.
Who
I mean,
knows?
it's plausible, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would probably get a starter or something if I was Baltimore because division's kind of tough.
Yeah, it's a division that you have to figure that the Red Sox and the Yankees aren't going to end up getting mired into a long period of mediocrity. You really have to strike when the opportunity arises, which I guess is happening right now. If you're 4 games up in your division, that includes the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Rays, who a lot of people had being the division favorites, and Toronto, who not exactly a bad team, then go all in. I mean, I'm not normally the kind of person that advocates going all in, but it may not be the worst time for Baltimore to do it.
I agree.
All right, so our next division, we have the AL West. We did better on the AL West. We didn't do great, but we did better. We both picked the Astros to finish in fifth. We both picked the Mariners to finish in fourth. We both picked the Angels to finish in third. We differed on who would win the division. You picked the Oakland A's to win the division, and they're currently in first place in the division. I picked the Texas Rangers to win the division, and they have the worst record in baseball. So maybe not the finest hour, though it should be noted that while you didn't pick the Rangers to win the division, you did pick them to win the pennant. So
Yeah.
we both, this was by far the worst pick that either of us made, really, in any regard, was picking the Rangers to thrive in 2014 when they actually are a game and a half back of Houston, who most people aren't convinced are trying to win.
I don't think the Rangers are trying to win either, apparently, because I don't know how the heck they did this. They have a negative 108 run differential. They've scored 108 less runs than their opponents.
I mean, it's remarkable how bad they've been. Yeah, I mean, Darvish is still playing well, but like Ian Kinsler for Prince Fielder hasn't worked out for them. They've had tons of injuries throughout the season. Shin-Soo Choo hasn't been nearly what was expected of him. But I mean, they still have Darvish. They still have Adrian Beltre. It still is amazing that this team is the worst team in baseball. Like, if you had told me that they would miss the playoffs, or that they'd essentially be like what the Angels have been the last couple of years, which is they're not awful, but not quite there. Like, I could have bought that, but they have a 400 winning percentage. Like, they've had almost 500 runs scored on them this season. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
I
pretty
just wanted
proud
to
of
explain this to me.
I'd have to look further into their team because I'm pretty NL Central centric when I pay attention to baseball, and this is the first I'm hearing about Texas being in last place. So I would need to look at how they got into last place, basically.
Yeah, it didn't dawn on me until recently just how bad they were. Like, I knew they were struggling. I knew they weren't, really contending for the division or anything. And then when I heard it put into the context of Houston is doing better than them, that's the point where I got very nervous and didn't want to admit that this first preview happened. But it did, and now this is being recorded. And
To be fair to our misconception of Texas, they are on an 8-game losing streak and have lost 9 of the last 10, and probably more if I look farther into their schedule. So they kind of vaulted below Houston pretty recently.
that doesn't make me feel any better about this at all.
No, well,
I still feel quite terrible about misleading the old shareholders here. But
yeah,
okay. But I mean, as far as you picked the A's to win the division.
I'm pretty happy with that.
You're gonna stick with that?
Oh yeah, they have the by far. By the way, I know I keep doing run differential, but I'm looking at standings right now. So what else? They have a 145 run differential, which is nobody else has 100. Nobody else has 70.
Number two
So
in baseball is the team that's in second place in the
yeah,
division, the Angels, and then
yep,
number four in baseball is the team that's in third place in the division, which is Seattle. That's a pretty good division, in spite of Houston and Texas not
yeah.
so well.
And Seattle is 8 games back with the same with 1 game less than the Cardinals.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a bombshell here as far as this division. I know I picked Texas to win it, but I think that the 21 games back that they currently are on July 15th might be a bit too much for them to overcome. I think if I had to make a pick going forward, I would pick Oakland. And if not Oakland, I think I would pick the Angels. And if not the Angels, I think I would pick Seattle. I might pick Texas over Houston, but that doesn't really say a whole lot.
Yeah, I would stick with Oakland, and then as far as the Angels are concerned, I'd probably say they're going to make a wild card now, which is obviously a pretty obvious statement since they have the second best record in the AL by quite a bit.
Yeah, at this point, Seattle would be the other wild card along with LA. I don't know about Seattle, but I mean, because I'm not saying that they won't, but it'd be a little tougher just because they'll have to be competing with Oakland and LA down the stretch. But definitely LA is looking good. Are you going to stick with Texas as your AL pennant winners? Or are you going to simply say somebody else other than Texas?
I think I am going to say somebody other than Texas because I'm
You
not an idiot.
wuss.
Uh, he-
Got to
I'm,
stand by your hot takes. Come on.
hold on. What would they actually have to do in the second half for them to make the playoffs? First of all, they have 38 wins right now. So
If they win out, they would have 105 wins, which means they would have 11 fewer wins than the 2001 Mariners, the same
okay,
number as the 2004 Cardinals.
so they pretty much have to go on a pace better than the Dodgers went last year when they won 42-8 in a 50-game span, pretty much, right? To make the playoffs.
They would have to,
Maybe 42-8 would be good for them to make the
let's see,
playoffs.
if they went on a 42-8 run, they'd be, let me do the math here, 80 and 65. So yeah,
Jeez,
at that point they would be in a good position.
that is still. I mean, that's still not guaranteed. How can you go on a 42-8 run and not be guaranteed to go in the playoffs at some point? That just astonishes me.
Being 19 games under 500, I guess.
Well, yeah.
But anyway, we got the we didn't do so good with the Rangers. We did a little bit better with the AL Central. We both picked Detroit to win, and they're in first. We both picked the White Sox to finish in fourth, and they're in fourth.
Oh,
By percentage points, but they are in fourth. We both picked Minnesota to finish in fifth, and they're in fifth by percentage points. We differed on the Royals and the Indians, and they're only a game apart, so that one's still sort of up for debate. I picked Kansas City to finish in second. You picked Cleveland. It's currently Kansas City's in second. They have a slightly above average run differential. Cleveland slightly below. Still feeling good about Detroit to win it though.
yeah. That division's kind of terrible.
I mean, they're 6.5 up, and it feels like they're up by more. What's weird is that it wasn't that long ago, was it, that the Royals were taking over first place, and that was a big deal with Kansas City.
I feel like every team in the league has gone in first place at some point. Colorado. Who else fell apart? Miami. Who else fell apart? San Francisco. I mean, geez.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco's at least still in the discussion, whereas some of these other ones have
Yes, but they
completely.
had like the best record by a lot, and now they have the same record as the Cardinals, except one less loss.
Yeah, yeah. That's a division where I mean, I guess I'll stick with Kansas City finishing ahead of Cleveland because I mean I picked it anyway, and I also could see Kansas City kind of losing their minds again and trying to make a move for David Price or something. Which, if they traded for David Price, they still wouldn't win the division. They still wouldn't be favorites to do anything in the playoffs.
Right.
But
But
they,
they
they,
would give up all
they
their
would do it.
prospects.
Give up whatever prospects they didn't deal for James Shields to begin
Yeah.
with.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Cleveland just because it's a 1 game difference, and I like Cleveland more than Kansas City.
I mean, you might as well. I mean, it's really not worth abandoning ship if over a game at this point.
Right.
Maybe I'll call you out in October if it doesn't come to fruition. At which point you can claim that the league's rigged or something. I don't know, but you can cross
Because
that
Cleveland didn't get
when I
second
get there.
place. I feel like I could save the
Yeah.
game as rigged for more important things.
Yeah, baseball's main incentive is determining who finishes in second. The Kansas City Royals or the Cleveland Indians. It's sort of the chief MO here.
Yeah.
Okay, now as far as AL awards, we had different picks for AL MVP. You picked Mike Trout to win AL MVP. You gonna stick with that one?
Uh, 1 second. Let me take a look at his stats for two reasons: to be amazed, and then also to see if he's at a similar pace. Um, he might not win just because of whatever Michael Jordan used to go through. Voter tired. Oh wow, he is
Well, he hasn't
actually.
won an MVP yet, so.
Oh right, sorry, I'm stupid. But okay, so he's actually on a better pace because he has 5.5 WAR already.
Oh yeah, he's quite good.
And that's with negative defense, and he's considered a positive fielder the past 2 years. So holy crap. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with Mike Trout on this one. And he already has
Yeah,
22 home runs, which is ultra important probably for some people. A lot of homers, a lot of RBIs.
yeah, he's doing a lot better in the in sort of the mainstream counting stats than he had in previous years. I had picked Miguel Cabrera to win MVP just because I figured because he was switching back to a more natural position, he would not be as negative a defender, which has been true, but his hitting also hasn't been where it had been. I mean, Cabrera is having a. I mean, he's still a good player, but definitely not quite up there with Trout. If I had to make a pick at this point, I would say Mike Trout will probably be MVP because his team's in almost all certainty going to make the playoffs in some capacity. You know,
He will.
even if they make it to the wild card game, which I suspect is going to be the case. I mean, at this point, who would be ahead of him in? I mean, I believe he's second in the home runs and might be.
He's not second. He has 22 home runs, and I know that Jose Abreu is 28 or 29, and
Abreu's
Nelson Cruz is
29.
29 as well.
Okay.
So
He's
there's no
up.
way.
He's up there at least, and his RBI total's up there. And
73 RBIs. Yeah, he should win it this year. I don't see any sort of nitpicking, not nitpicking, just general stupidity that would prevent him from winning it again because his counting stats are going to look good. He's probably going to make the playoffs, and Miguel Cabrera is having a down-ish year. So
yeah, I think barring an injury, it's going to be Trout. I'm trying to think of who else would even be close. Like looking at batter wins above replacement in the AL, number two is Alex Gordon, who I don't think would really get much play because he's not a great hitter. It's mostly his defense that's got him up there.
hmm
And who else? Kyle Seager.
no,
I mean,
what?
he's having a really good year, but Michael Brantley and Josh Donaldson, I don't think any of these guys have nearly the. I mean, Josh Donaldson is number 11 in Major League Baseball in WAR, and he has a 238 batting average, which I mean, it makes sense if you look beyond, which is that he has power and he walks a decent amount. And he's a really good fielder, but a 238 guy, unless it's Ryan Howard, probably isn't going to get a whole lot of great. It might be Felix Hernandez, honestly. That would be the next guy
Right.
up. But you have to figure that if Trout's going to have a hard time with his team level, then Felix probably isn't going to have a great time.
Yeah, and also I know that Verlander won the MVP not too long ago, but if Mike Trout's having this season at the end of the year, I just don't know how they would justify voting a pitcher over him.
Yeah, usually if a pitcher's going to win MVP, which I'm not opposed to on like a moral level, but usually if it's going to be that case, the pitcher's going to have an outstanding year, which granted Felix Hernandez is, but also there's not going to be a batter having an outstanding year, and Trout is. At this
Right.
point, they're actually pretty comparable in terms of WAR, but I think at this point it would be Trout. As far as Cy Young, though, we both picked Yu Darvish to win the Cy Young out of the AL, and Darvish is currently fourth in Fangraphs pitcher WAR. Got a 2.97 ERA, 2.76 fielding independent ERA,
Holy
8.5.
crap, Phil Hughes. I just want to throw that out there. Do you see
Phil,
Phil Hughes on that list?
Phil Hughes is an interesting case because, like, all of a sudden he's starting to strike out some guys. like a 7.99 strikeout per nine, in the modern era isn't great, but it is for Phil Hughes, and he's still not walking anybody.
He has walked like less than Adam Wainwright when he walked one batter more than he starts.
Like it seems like Phil Hughes is sort of doing what Uehara did recently to some extent, but as a starter.
Right.
And it's weird, but I mean, at this point, though, Felix Hernandez is by far the leading candidate for AL Cy Young, and that's who I would obviously pick going forward.
Yeah, that's hard not to agree with. Yeah, pretty much. I'm just looking at the other candidates, and I don't see like John Lester winning it, even though he's having a great year.
Yeah, I mean, unless Lester really heats up or Felix Hernandez really drops off, and plus John Lester's on the last place team, so
Not going to help. And
yeah.
Phil Hughes isn't not going to win it at all because his ERA is super high.
I just realized that every pitcher who isn't King Felix, that's an AL top WAR guy, is on a terrible team. At that
Yeah.
point, looking at Corey Kluber, Garrett Richards, or
Garrett Richards is not on a terrible team, though.
yeah,
But that's it. Then there's Quintana. Nope.
Tanaka
Tanaka.
might.
Yeah.
Tanaka will have the wins, but at this point, it's a one-win difference between he and Felix, and Felix is better in any other regard. He's got more strikeouts per nine, walks are similar, better ERA, better FIP, and all that.
I might stick with my pick of Darvish if the Rangers weren't so terrible, because he has the kind of stats that could, like, I don't know, vault past Hernandez if Hernandez faltered even a little bit and Darvish even improved a little bit. You know what I mean? But like
Yeah, I'm still going Felix. I'm not gonna.
the range. No, I was just like speaking theoretically there. If the Rangers were happen to be good, might. But since they're so bad, there's no way.
I would agree with that. And as far as rookie of the year, we both picked Tanaka. At this point, he's tied in among AL rookies for WAR with Jose Abreu. That's gonna be an interesting case because I think Tanaka probably has the edge in terms of likelihood to win because he had more hype coming into the year and because he's in New York.
Mm, yeah.
But Abreu does have the 29 home runs, and that's hard to ignore.
Yeah.
Got a 972 OPS.
And what's his like? Doesn't he have like insane power? I'm going to his stats right now, but
Well, he's a 339 ISO.
that's insane.
I mean, ISO is not really a number that I spend a lot of time looking at, so I have a hard time looking at a number and saying, "Oh, that's a lot." But 339 that stands out. Like I'm looking at the other guys who are on the rookie list, and there's only a couple other guys that are even in the 200s.
Oh yeah, for rookies, that is pretty much unheard of. I'm looking at players right now, ISO in the past to see what is truly insane, and he had 454 one year in 1998, of course. 454. So
Who was that
that's
had the 454? I didn't quite hear you.
Mark,
Okay. So I mean
who
that's
also. So, fun fact for Mark McGwire fans out there.
I mean this. I think people are Mark McGwire fans probably have heard enough about his general power and superstardom and all of that. So let's not
But
give him
they
any more
always claim.
attention.
No. I'm a Mark McGwire supporter, and I just want to point out that he gets bashed for his average, but he has a 394 career OPP. So screw those people.
Yeah, I mean
That is all.
if someone's hitting 70 home runs in a season, I'm generally inclined to give them a pass if their average isn't,
It was
quite as high.
299.
Yeah, which is not exactly a bad average.
It's a great average.
All right,
299.
so I'm gonna go ahead and stick with Tanaka though for rookie of the year, if for no other reason than I'm stubborn and don't really feel like changing course when I'm not totally sure that it's the right move to change course.
I'll agree, because, I mean, if they're close, you might as well stick with your original picks so that you could look smart later.
Oh, I fully intend to look very smart later. But
But you don't want to look dumb twice.
says the guy who picked the Rangers to win the AL West. All right.
Uh, I could go back and show you that John Heyman said Johnny Peralta was a disappointing sign-up, and then I will feel much smarter about myself, because he had evidence that he was not. And
That,
I
that
did
was
not have evidence that the Rangers were going to be terrible.
yeah. It's one thing to be bad at predictions. It's another thing to be bad looking when you know what happened. That's an interesting thing with Peralta, though, because I remember hearing a lot about it whenever that story came out, people just tweeting about it, saying how ridiculous it was. But I never actually read it because I just wasn't home at the time. I didn't feel like pulling it up. And then eventually I was like, okay, fine, I'll look it up. And I got warned about it on Twitter, people saying, no, you don't want to look it up. Just ignore it. But I looked it up, and it's exactly what I thought it was. This is what
Uh,
happens when I don't trust you people on Twitter, is I get headaches. But as far as we mentioned, I picked the Tigers to win the AL. You picked the Rangers. Who were you going to pick instead of the Rangers? I'm going to stick with the Tigers just out of stubbornness. Plus, I mean, why not?
well, I'm going to have to stick with the West team because I really want them to win one year, although not this year. That'll be Cardinals. Oakland.
All right. Yeah, I mean, this is one of those picks where if I were just as a blank slate, I might pick Oakland just because they're really, really good. I mean, it's hard to evaluate how many games back Detroit is just because the wins are so far off. Oakland's got 6 more wins and 2 fewer losses, so that would mean what does that mean?
Um,
Means they're 4 games up. Is that
well,
right? The average
I'm
of the
getting
two?
a headache just thinking about
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. But
it.
I mean, the thing is, once you get to the playoffs, it becomes very random and difficult to predict. So, I mean, you're best off picking a division winner. The two most likely division winners seem to be Detroit and Oakland. So, all right. So for the National League, we have who do we have here? The NL East. We have pretty similar picks that have generally gone okay. We both picked Washington to win, Atlanta to finish in second. That's the way that it currently is. You had the Mets finishing in third, which is currently where they are. I had the Phillies finishing in third, and they're in last. We both had the Marlins finishing in last. They're in fourth. I mean, the top 2 teams we agreed were solidly ahead of the pack, and they're solidly ahead of the pack now.
So I had Philadelphia in fourth.
Yes.
I wish I had the guts to put them in the fifth. I do not like
I think you
Philadelphia.
considered it. I think it at least. I think that was something that you at least had commented on, but
I'm
you didn't.
sure it was because of the Yankees thing. I also picked the Yankees to pick last.
So it's interesting because Washington's just like decimal points ahead of Atlanta, and they have a 49 run better run differential. So it implies that Washington is probably a better team. And we both picked Washington, so I'm guessing you're sticking with them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right.
And I'm pretty
Yep.
proud of that Mets
Same
pick.
here. I also had Washington making the World Series, so I definitely want to at least pick them to win the division. We'll see as far as if I keep with them to win the pennant. As far as the NL West, we both picked the Dodgers to win it, and they're in first place. We
Barely.
we both had the Rockies and the Padres finishing in fourth and fifth. I had the Padres and the Rockies. You had Rockies and Padres. They're currently in third and fourth. I had the Giants getting a wild card berth as the number 2 team in the division. You, however, had the Diamondbacks finishing in second, and they're currently in last place in the National League as a whole.
Did I have the Diamondbacks making the wild card team or no?
I don't believe you did, so
Whew.
you at least have that much going for you.
Thank God. Um, yeah, I mean,
I'm guessing you're gonna say that the Diamondbacks aren't going to finish in second at this point.
no, I don't. I think Diamondbacks was one of those things where I didn't actually want to pick them because I do not like the Diamondbacks at all. Like I hate their team. With trading away what Justin Upton and like all their moves the past few years have been idiotic. So yeah, I don't think I wanted to put him in second, but I felt like
But you did.
but it was impossible to resist because
You did. You must be held accountable for it. And they currently have a 0.1% playoff odds, which are the same as Houston and Texas. So,
I would be very disappointed in myself if I wasn't so happy that Arizona is not going to make the playoffs.
yeah. I mean, Arizona is only a game and a half back of third. I could see Arizona getting better to the extent that they would finish in a distant third, but there's no way they're going to catch up to LA or San Francisco. Those two are solidly leading. And I'm definitely going to stick with the Dodgers going forward. You keep in mind that they have this lead after having missed out on Kershaw for a while too. So I mean, they're only going to get better from here, which is a little scary since they already do have the best record in the NL.
Although, to be fair, Kershaw has basically pitched so good in 2 months that it's worth normal 3 months of Kershaw, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kershaw has been maybe the best pitcher in baseball, so it's frightening.
Ooh, don't say that. Cards fans will get mad at you if you don't say Wainwright has been better.
Oh, we'll get to the Cy Young whenever we get there, but Clayton Kershaw has 96.1 innings and is just out of this world good.
He's probably pitching so far, if he continued this, which I'm skeptical that this will be at the end of the year. He's probably pitched like the best of any pitcher in like the last since Pedro Martinez in 2002 or something like that. But
Well,
through half a season.
I mean, Pedro 99 is sort of probably the vintage
99.
Pedro year because I think he had sub 2 ERA for the year, and that was in. I mean, I would say the sub 2 ERA in the 1.9s in 99 was more impressive than a 1.78 is
Bro, that's why I
now,
said sense.
just because of the era. But regardless, what Kershaw is doing is, I mean, Kershaw, if you look at his ERA, FIP, and XFIP, his highest number is ERA. So, if anything, you would look at his numbers and think, wow, he's getting unlucky to have such a high ERA of 1.78. But we'll get back to him in just a minute here. But for the NL Central, we actually had the same exact order on this one. We both had the Cardinals winning it, and they're currently in second. We both had Cincinnati coming in second, they're in third. We both had Pittsburgh in third, and they're in fourth. We both had the Cubs in last, and they're Cubsing. And the Brewers, we both had in fourth, and they're in first. Brewers are definitely not a team that I saw doing this.
I don't think anybody did except for maybe the most homer Brewers fans there is. And even Brewers fans though tend to take a somewhat pessimistic side towards seasons.
Which is fair because of their
right, because of their past, like their two best seasons, Cardinals beat them or whatever.
Yeah.
But so I don't even think Brewers fans saw this coming.
And the thing is, like, if you look at what the Brewers are doing, I mean, people were very skeptical of them in the first month or so of the season because their record was like 750 or so. Like they were way, out of this world good. And it was sort of like, okay, well, they're not going to keep this up. But at the same time, they also completely fell apart down the stretch and down the stretch to the All-Star game. You have to figure they're not going to be that bad either.
If I were to, I'm going to say though that I'm going to stick with my picks for Milwaukee finishing fourth because I think the other three teams are better, and I definitely think Cincinnati is better than Pittsburgh. So yeah, I really like our picks still.
Yeah, I'm not going to go. I'm going to give Milwaukee a little more credit. I think I'll pick Milwaukee to finish in third. I mean,
there's a
it
3.5
wouldn't shock me because there's not a huge gap between first and fourth, so it wouldn't shock me if Milwaukee finished in fourth, and they could finish in fourth without it being considered a free fall. But they have a lot going. I mean, they have some really good players. They don't have a great starter, so people tend to overlook their pitching, but they have a decent rotation. Well, their rotation's just full of adequacy. They have guys like Loesch and Gallardo and guys that you wouldn't really want as an ace, but they're fine, and that's just sort of what they are, and that's a third place team in my eyes. So
Kyle Loesch is actually having a better season than any season he did have with the Cardinals. I don't know if you knew that, but I know that's still not ace, but that's interesting that he has actually gotten better, if anything.
It's because he got a really elite level catcher calling games for him. That's why.
Oh,
Dig into the
Jennifer.
Cardinals fans. All right, that was fun. We'll talk about that in a second too, because
Oh boy.
it was the
Yeah.
award. So for MVP, we didn't do so good on the MVP picks. You had Yadier Molina, who is not really having. I mean, he's having an okay season, but he's not having a great Yadier Molina level season. Not doing as well as he has the last 2 years. And then,
He got hurt, so that didn't help.
yeah, and then I picked Bryce Harper, who got hurt earlier and has more of a fatalistic viewpoint for the rest of the year than Molina does. So I will be jumping far, far off of the bandwagon for Bryce Harper. But who would be your pick for NL MVP then? At this first of all, who at this point, and then who do you think going forward?
Before I answer, I really want to say Jonathan Lucroy, but let me look. Just you know why I want to say Jonathan Lucroy, but I do.
Well, I want to say Luke for the same reason I want to say Johnny Cueto should win the Cy Young. I'm just not going to.
Right.
Not
Let's
intellectually
see.
honest.
Oh, Troy Tulowitzki. No shit. Um, although, if Tulowitzki wasn't having the year that he's having, I think there's a pretty good argument for Lucroy with pitch framing.
Yeah, I mean, with pitch framing, I'm not great at understanding it. Which, I mean, it's not a defense of my view on it, but at the same time, I don't want to put so much emphasis on something that's sort of a little more abstract. Sort of in the same way that people, whenever they're promoting Yadier Molina for awards, they'll say things along the lines of, what he does to calm down pitchers, and they'll say that it's something you can't quantify, but then they'll say that it makes up for like 5 wins above replacement or something like that. And I'm thinking, well, you can't quantify it, but that doesn't mean you should just put some artificially high number on it.
Well, to be fair, I mean, there is not an artificial number on the Lucroy stuff. And while I agree with you that I don't believe that like Lucroy is worth he's worth something crazy like five wins or something based off his pitch. I don't know, but it's a crazy number of what they think. But I am willing to take the word that Lucroy is the best at framing pitches and know
Yeah.
in my mind that that means something. So I'll put him above the guys close to him, and then and fun fact though, the more stats that come out for catcher defense, this will probably get me burned at the stake, but the less I'm convinced that Yadier Molina might be the best defensive catcher, or to the extent that people think he is. How about that? He's the best defensive catcher probably, but I don't know if I would say
Well,
he's
it depends what you look at. And people who are wanting to speak positively of Yadier Molina are going to point out how good he is at throwing out runners because he's the best at throwing out runners. So obviously you're going to point out that. If you look at some of his other stuff, as far as pitch framing, as far as blocking, I mean, he's good at it, but you're not going to lean on that if that's the case you're trying to make.
right. So, but yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. But although I still probably would say he's the best defensive catcher, just probably not as obviously and to the extent that I think most Cardinals fans would, which I guess is such a drastic position to say that Cardinals
Yeah.
fans overrate one of their players.
Well, at the same time, if you look at Lucroy and Molina's offensive numbers for this season, Lucroy's clearly been the better hitter. So even
Right.
avoiding just defense, Lucroy's certainly been the better offensive player to this point. But is Lucroy who you would say is the MVP up to this point?
No, I would say Tulowitzki. But what was I going to say?
Do you think he would have any chance of actually winning if there were an MVP voted on to this point? Because I agree that he's been the best player, and I agree that best player equals MVP. But just because his team is bad,
Do you think Tulowitzki would have any chance of winning at this point, you mean?
yeah.
With a 345 average, 21 home. Okay, the home runs, I thought that was more extreme than it is. But
No,
yeah,
I don't disagree that he's the best player. He would, if I had to make a vote for MVP right now in the NL, I would vote for Troy Tulowitzki because of the fact that he is a high-level defensive shortstop who has an over 1,000 OPS, even if it's in Colorado. Like
okay,
it's hard
here.
to argue with that. The problem would be voters' perceptions of the fact that he's on a fourth place team. which I
Actually,
don't agree with, but that's the sort of logic that comes into play.
now that you mention it, though, actually, I think you're probably right. I don't think Tulowitzki would win as crazy as it sounds because I'm looking at McCutcheon's stats, and offensively they're about similar.
Yeah.
His defense is dragging him down. I don't know if he's that bad of a defender, but I don't think he's as
I think McCutcheon's always been an overrated defender. McCutcheon's
yeah,
won
that's
Gold Gloves, which is totally crazy. But
right. My point exactly. They think McCutcheon's way better defender than he actually is, which may think that. Plus, couple of the fact that the Pirates are more likely to make the playoffs as a wild card team than the Rockies. I don't know. McCutcheon could steal it from Tulowitzki.
I actually think that looking at the offensive numbers, I think I would actually maybe go with McCutcheon over Tulowitzki at this point just because it's Pittsburgh versus Colorado. But as a complete package, I would definitely go with the top level defensive shortstop over the not as great defensive center fielder.
And
But
also, there's actually a stat that quantifies for it and shows McCutcheon is better, which is weighted runs created plus.
yeah,
And McCutcheon has 179 to Tulowitzki's 175, which is very, very close, but McCutcheon does have the lead offensively. The other factors that voters typically ignore favor Tulowitzki pretty heavily, though.
yeah. But who do you think then is going to end up winning it once the season plays out then? And it's a little harder to predict. I mean, we have Texas doing as well as they do, so obviously we're not good at predicting the future. But if you had to, who would you say for the NL?
I would say to completely depend. I mean, this sounds terrible, but it probably depends on how good the Pirates end up doing down the stretch. Because and since I don't predict the Pirates to make the playoffs, I'd have to stick with Tulowitzki because there's no other candidates that are that close that will make the playoffs. Like Carlos Gomez, I don't expect the Brewers to make the playoffs. Stan, the Marlins probably won't make the playoffs, and then at that point, Todd Frazier's not going to win it, and Luke Roy's not going to win it. And I
And
don't.
Goldschmidt maybe? He's even further back, so
Yeah, but he does have the whole.
I love
Um,
the RBI numbers and
those home runs are not that impressive for uh, a power hitting first baseman who can't play defense at first base.
yeah.
So I don't know.
It could be. Honestly, it could be a pitcher year. If Kershaw keeps this up, which again I don't think he's keeping this up, but if he were to keep this up,
I would agree with you except for Kershaw missed a month, so I don't know if that might he might win a Cy Young with that missing month, but I don't know if you could say that he'll win the MVP missing a whole month. You know,
there would be some anger about it. I can't argue
uh,
with that.
but yeah, I'm gonna go with Tulowitzki probably. Still,
Yeah, I think I'll go. I think I'll predict McCutcheon going forward. Tulowitzki, if he does what he did in the first half again, I would definitely pick him. But we'll see.
to be
So
fair, I don't think McCutcheon will maintain the stats either, though.
that's true, but I think he'll probably come closer, just because he's done it before. As
Mm,
far as uh, as far as Cy Young though, we did better on Cy Young because we both predicted Kershaw would win the Cy Young.
right.
At this point, it appears to be a two-horse race between Clayton Kershaw and Adam Wainwright for NL Cy Young. Who would you pick to win the Cy Young at this point?
Oh well, I would go with. Hold on, I got to change the innings requirement because apparently Kershaw is still not qualified for innings
Yeah,
pitched.
Kershaw breaks everything in terms of looking up stats.
Jeez, Kershaw. This is amazing. Kershaw has 5 less starts and about 40 less innings than Wainwright and has .3 more WAR. That's ridiculous.
The thing is that
Yeah.
the two of them are so far above any other NL pitchers. It's just not. It's ridiculous how far ahead they are of anyone else as far as candidacy.
Well, except for Strasburg, who he's
Even Strasburg though, there's really not an argument for Strasburg to be like the best argument that you could make for. Eh, I mean, Strasburg has a higher ERA than his peripherals would suggest, but even so, his peripherals still suggest he's not as good as Wainwright, whose peripherals suggest he's not as good as Kershaw. So,
although you could use xFIP, where he is significantly better than Wainwright, although Wainwright has shown a talent to pitch better than that over his career, so that'd be kind of a weak argument anyway, I think.
Yeah, at that point, I think that it's just sort of trying to say it for the sake of it. But yeah, I would say that the top two are definitely set at this point, and it would take a pretty extraordinary effort. I mean, Strasburg may not need to add extraordinary of an effort, but it's probably going to come down to those two. I would pick Kershaw at this point just because of how dominant he's been in fewer innings. I can see the argument for Wainwright because the fact that Wainwright's pitched over 40 more innings than Kershaw, like that does matter. That does weigh in. But you have a guy who's striking out 11 and 3/4 batters per nine versus a guy that's striking out 7.5, and the guy who's striking out so many more guys also has about half a run less, or half a walk less per nine.
And to put it simpler,
out of this world. And I feel bad because like people, whenever they announced the All-Star starters yesterday, are trying to get up in arms about it as though these two aren't really good pitchers, as though there aren't cases to be made both ways. Which it sounds like such a cop-out to say that, but they're close as far as their credentials, but as far as dominance, Kershaw, there's nobody that's that close. Like, even compared to Felix Hernandez, Kershaw is crazy.
So here's how dominant Kershaw is. Adam Wainwright has 115 strikeouts, and Clayton Kershaw has 126 in 40 less innings. Clayton Kershaw has 126 strikeouts to 13 walks in 96 innings. That is unbelievable. And I know you basically just said that with the K per nine and walk per nine, but if you just put the strikeouts and walks against each other, it's just like, holy cow.
There's a lot of different ways to word it. No matter which way you chalk it, it's crazy. But let's move on to an award where we did not do so good predicting. In fact, we're so bad at predicting, we can't even remember, and we're too lazy to look up who you picked for this award. But I know who I picked, and it's not good. The National League Rookie of the Year. First of all, can we agree who the National League Rookie of the Year is to this point? Is that up for debate, or is that, like, at this point, who would it be? It has to be Billy Hamilton, right?
Yeah, it disappoints the heck out of me, but...
I mean, Billy Hamilton's... number two is probably Chris Owings, and Billy Hamilton's at least a win and a half better, maybe about 2 wins, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Well, the thing about Hamilton, though, is that he's a much better defender than I expected him to be. I mean, I don't think he's as good as his numbers are right now, because holy cow, that is like Peter Borges level, and I'm going to need more than half a season to tell me that. But if he, like, the thing with him was he wasn't going to be great offensively, and that's kind of held true. He's been above average, but with a high BABIP and whatever. But anyway.
Well, the high BABIP's got to be a little bit expected because he's so fast, but...
Right, but poor K to walk ratio for him, I don't know. So his offense has kind of been a little better than advertised, but I can still see it being not great. But his defense has been insane, and it allows him to be a good player no matter how good or bad he does offensively. And the fact that he's been good offensively is just icing on the cake, I'm sure, for Reds fans.
Also, he has 38 steals, and that's a nice little side note.
I don't put any stock into steals.
Yeah, like, I'm not a steals guy because I don't generally find steal, like, as exciting as steals are, I don't generally consider them usually to be great strategy, but 38 of them definitely stands out if you're just looking at the numbers, especially if you're voting for an award and you have a choice between a guy with 38 steals and a guy with way, way fewer than 38.
Well, I'm looking at, let's see, 38. So he's been caught in, okay, he's got a 71% success rate, which is like considered right on the level of acceptable.
Yeah.
So
it's above average, but it's not.
Still not that ideal. Like, it makes the 38 steals way less impressive, but certainly not like the year in the minors when he stole 104 and barely ever got caught or whatever. Yeah. But 38 steals is better than not 38 steals to voters. So yeah, Billy Hamilton's gonna win for sure.
Yeah, they just announced Jonathan Lucroy at the All-Star game. I'm checking on my Twitter feed right now, and I'm not seeing anybody like angrily cursing him. This is very disappointing. Cardinals fans, I guess, I don't know. got saner.
Yeah,
But
you probably can look at the best fans Twitter account, and
eh,
even though I have a vendetta against them,
too much
uh,
work.
right?
Well they blocked me as I've probably announced in the past, so I have to actually look them up because I can't follow them.
Ah,
Too much
well,
effort. Anyway, though, my rookie of the year pick in the preseason was Archie Bradley, who has yet to make his major league debut. So I really nailed that one. I'm pretty proud of that.
wow. I feel like my pick was somewhat like that, but I literally have no idea who I picked.
Well, it couldn't have been a worse pick. It could have been an equally bad pick, but there's no way it was worse.
Fair, fair. All
And
right.
as far as NL picks, you picked the Cardinals. I picked the Nationals. They are both currently leading their divisions. They're both neither one has the best record in the league, but they're both reasonably close to it. Cardinals are a game and a half back of the Dodgers. The Nationals are 2 games back of the Dodgers. You gonna stick with your pick or
To make the World Series.
yeah?
Well, since I failed so spectacularly on the Rangers pick, I think I have to stick with this pick just because it's not completely failed.
It's not a terrible pick, yeah. I'll go ahead and stick with the Nationals too. Why not? And so anyway, so do you remember who you picked to be World Series MVP?
Uh, um, just give me. Was it? It was got to be somebody in the Cardinals, right?
It was a Cardinal, yes.
I'm guessing he's somebody currently injured.
No,
Oh,
it's not
oh,
somebody currently injured.
I went on a limb, didn't I? I probably picked like Alan Craig, didn't I?
Yep, you sure did pick Alan Craig.
Oh, that's.
You wanted some consolation though. I picked Justin Verlander, so neither one of
Oh,
our guys are exactly having great years.
although I guess for a 7-game series, it could still somehow explode if Alan Craig makes it past the trading deadline.
You want to make a change on your pick for? I mean, the MVP can be anybody, so it's not. I mean, David Eckstein was a World Series MVP. It's not like it
He didn't
has to
deserve
be
it,
a great player, but
right?
you can stick.
Uh,
You can stick with Craig, or are you gonna
I might
switch
as
up?
well because it's as much of a crapshoot as literally anything in awards is. So
All
yeah, I
right.
guess I'll stick with Craig and I whatever. Like the World Series MVP is one of those predictions that I just could not care less about.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and switch mine. I'm gonna switch to Ian Kinsler because I'm just a complete coward and I'm afraid of that Verlander pick.
Well, the weird thing about you, I think there's a much better chance of Verlander being really good in 2 games than Craig being good in 7 games and winning MVP of the series. So I'm gonna have to call you a coward on that one.
Oh, I'm definitely a coward. There's really no reason to even skirt that one. Anyway, was there anything else as far as preview stuff you wanted to bring up or call out or look forward to for the remainder of the year?
Let's see. Well, I don't think so. I was going to talk about the All-Star game, but
All right, what do you want to talk about?
not really sure what to talk about. Uh, I just can't believe there are 79 players in the All-Star game, and while some of that is injuries, that is stupid from
The
both
the All
teams.
the All-Star game is just not my favorite thing in the world because it comes at such a bad time and like the World Cup just ended. I know you're not really a big soccer guy, but like it would have been so perfect to have these big games like the next couple nights when there's no sports on at all. But nope, got to just have a complete break after coming off of like NBA, NHL playoffs, coming off the World Cup, coming off all these major sports. There's just complete nothingness, and it feels like a borderline addictive sort of thing to say that, but I need sports to just be on all the time, or else I cannot function.
Yeah, and although you could argue that that's a smart move for MLB because nothing else is on. But the problem with the All-Star game is that they want to, have their cake and eat it too. They want to make it an exhibition, but they also want to make it count. So they have things like Derek Jeter making the team, and if they make it count, there's no reason he should make the team. But like, it's kind of stupid if you kind of want him to make the team. I don't really give a shit about Derek Jeter, so I don't care if he makes a team or not. But my point is that you make it into exhibition or make it count. You can't have both things. They don't mix.
Yeah, I'm a strong believer in the All-Star game just being a complete joke. Like I would just have just whatever hilarious combinations of players we can have, bring in players who are complete hot dogs and have them go completely ridiculous and
I
have it
mean,
not actually count.
do
And also
people?
I would have USA versus World, but
Oh, that'd be cool. But do people actually like vote people in the Hall of Fame based off their All-Star game selections? I mean, does it actually mean anything other than it's cool for the player that one year? You
I
know
feel
what I
like
mean?
it comes. I feel like it might come up with like Jack Morris or something like that. But for the most part, I mean, I honestly I probably care less about the Hall of Fame than I do the All Star game. It's just not something that I put a lot of stock into. But yeah, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, but like that's. I mean, if your Hall of Fame argument is based off the first 3 months of play, because I mean, if the All-Star game was based off whoever the best player at the end of the year was, I could understand arguing that. But Brian LaHare made the All-Star game, and it kind of deserved it at the time. If your
Yeah.
argument that the 3 months are the ones that matter, I don't know. They gotta decide. I think between whether they want it to count or whether they want it to be a fun exhibition, which I honestly think might be less interesting because the fact that it counts kind of makes you want to watch who wins. I don't know. See, that's tough.
It is a little hard to get super into it, even knowing that it counts because it's World Series is 3 months from now. Your team may or may not be in it. Even if they do get the home field advantage because of it, it's one game's difference. It's not like it determines home field advantage for all 7 games. It's just one game changes.
Although they showed, and this obviously means nothing, but they showed like the last few World Series winners have been home quote unquote teams. So, but
Yeah, but only one of them's gone 7 games, and that's really the only one you could argue. I mean, you could argue that the Cardinals are the only team that's ever actually benefited because it's been the only 7-game series since they instituted the rule.
true, true, true. Oh yeah, I would not disagree with that. Although I guess there's got to be some kind of benefit to playing the first 2 games at home, and then if you get up to a big lead, like with San Francisco, the 2 times they won it, because they were definitely worse than whoever they played, if I remember correctly.
They played Texas and Detroit. I remember thinking Detroit was going to win whenever they played them. I don't really remember having much of a thought on the Texas series.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Although if they split the first 2 games, I guess your point comes again. I don't know. Home field advantage is obviously probably overstated.
Yeah.
Because
Regardless, though, like it counts, and they'll constantly point out that it counts, but at the same time, it doesn't count for that much. Though by pointing that out, it almost seems to be daring them to make it count for more.
oh, uh,
I'd rather they just gave it to whatever team had the better record, but what are you gonna do?
right.
All right, so got anything you want to plug or anything, or Twitter account, anything you're working
Uh,
on? Or...
just no.
I have your Twitter. I have your Twitter handle in the description for the video. So if anyone doesn't follow you, then hopefully they'll see that, and if they're entertained by your takes,
Hot
they'll check
takes.
you out. I don't know how hot they've been. I think you were a little hesitant on the Alan Craig thing. I think if you were really going the hot take route, you would have predicted that I don't know, Colton Wong or something would be MVP.
Oh, that would definitely be a hot take because I'd be not only would I be going back on what I predicted, but I would be doing it based off 7 games where Colton Wong hit a couple homers.
Yeah, that's as hot as it gets.
Right. Let's see. Oh, if I were to change it, you could go Matt Holliday, but of course he's not clutch. So who would you pick? What, Matt
Descalzo.
Adams?
Descalzo.
I hate you. Sorry. What? Sorry, Descalso. Just
Oh,
instinct.
you said that you hated me. That's fine.
No,
Um,
that's the first thing I come whenever somebody says Descalso in a positive light. That's my first instinct is to just say I hate you to
I,
whoever.
I'm trying to embrace him on an ironic level. I'm trying to sort of. I mean, there's only a few things that I want to truly have contempt for. I mean, Chris Berman's one of them, and now that the home run derby's over, I have no reason for that. So I'll just try to be happy-go-lucky about everything.
How the heck are you going to like Descalso on any level is my question.
In the same way that I liked Wigginton because I just thought it was such a joke and it was just so absurd. But Descalso plays too much. If they could just never play him like they did the last month or so of Ty Wigginton last year, I could just enjoy it and laugh and have fun with it. But
But Descalso's, proven and veteran and whatever.
he's gritty and versatile.
And I'm positive this would be the case, but I think releasing him would get some players angry because players aren't exactly smart on players' values. I don't think, at least. But I actually do think releasing him might make the players angry because I think they really like Descalso, which
That's
is
fine. So they go back to just not playing him, and I'd be happy with that.
right. Just to have him be whatever in the clubhouse, earn his pay, quote unquote, earn his paycheck. Sorry, can't can't say I'd actually earn it, but
It's difficult. I'm sure that you winced a little bit there.
I did. I did mean it sarcastically, and I still winced.
All right, you're fine. All right, looks like the All-Star game is about to start, so let's get this wrapped up. I don't think anyone's actually listening live, but if they are, they would probably be about to abandon us anyway. So
I think they're asleep right now.
they got the national anthem going on. They should be listening and calling to attention. And since I'm interrupting technically the national anthem, I'll be sure to listen to it again later.
Because you hate America. Sorry, because you like America.
I do like America. America's a great country and all of that. All right, this is a very pro-American podcast. All right, well, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you, Gabe, for joining in, and hopefully everybody enjoys this All-Star game as well as the rest of the baseball season.
So, that's funny. Sorry.
I hope they enjoy it.
I mean,
It'd
not
be
as much
nice.
as the rest of the baseball season, probably.
Yeah, probably not. Well, thanks for listening, everybody.